Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Private Investigator Advice Podcast. This is going to be episode 53, and we're going to be talking about choosing a business name for your investigative business. And without further ado,
this is the PI Advice Podcast.
Yeah, boy.
What's going on, guys? So, it is not a Tuesday, and yet here I am on podcasting. This is weird. Hope you guys are all doing good. Hope your weeks are going well. Today we're going to be discussing, naming your business. You guys are, maybe you haven't. Been able to get licensed in your state and you're like, well, forget it. I'll just start my own business. So you guys go that route, or you've been doing this for a while and you're frustrated. You want to make more money, and the only way to do that in this industry really is to start your own business. But then that's hard too, but that's a whole nother podcast. So, but regardless of the fact, whatever reason you are, starting your own business for, whatever the reason is you still got to come up with a name. And this is actually a podcast and an article I had planned on writing, I swear to goodness, like a year ago. And I just thought to myself, man, nobody gives a crap about that. Like, really, who's gonna read that? Who's gonna listen to that? Who's even looking for that information? Is that even a big deal? And then I got a message from somebody, I think it was on Facebook, and I'm not even going to pull it up, but they had said, look, my friend is starting a investigation business, and he named it, blah, blah, blah. And I told him this was a bad idea. Can you get my back on this? And, and I can't remember. I'm not going to look it up because I don't even want to know the real names. I don't want to say it, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but let's just say it was something like Locked and Loaded Investigations or something to that effect. It was, to me, whatever it was very unprofessional. And if I was looking at a directory listing of investigation names, that is one I definitely pass over because it just seemed like, okay, this guy's might even though he might not be, but he might sound like a joker. Like, okay, this is one of those wannabes, and a name could mean a lot, you want it to be professional, but so, I way back when, I don't know what this was, 2 or 3 years ago now, when I, got my investigation license, or mind you, it might've been right before that, because I think I had to put my business name on everything. So I knew I was going to start my own business, and I needed to come up with a name. And to be honest with you, I mean, I had no idea what was going to. I had my brother helping me brainstorm, and but usually in the investigation industry, it's either you name it your name, so it would be Andrew, Andrew Kidd Investigations, or Andrew Kidd and Associate, Andrew something, or my last name, right? It would be something Associates, and that's how you'd brand it. You'd brand it, under your name. And you would be the face of the organization. So, and again, when I'm starting this up, I don't know how big I'm going to get. I don't know how motivated I'm going to be. I don't know what my, what the family situation is going to be like. So I'm trying to anticipate things for the future. Now I can always have changed it. If it didn't work out, I could always change it. But I was just trying to think way ahead, like, just anticipating things in the future. And so I was trying to think about that. Or I could have, so you can name your business under your name, or you can brand it, right? I always use probably like the same 5 company names as an example, but you've got Ethos Risk, that's an investigation company. You got G4S. These are brandable names, right? These are big big companies. Hub, Horseman, these are big, and I know that Horseman isn't named after the owner. I know the owner's name, and I know G4S's past names now. It's I can't even right now off the top of my head remember the original name. MJM was the original name. Now I can't see. Anyways, so if you ever grow your business so big and someone buys you out, or wants to buy your company, you would, if you have a brandable name, I'm sure it'd be easier to sell, or easier for someone to take over if they wanted to. So that was my dilemma at the beginning, and let's see some of the things I know. So I could have, like, if I went with my name, right? So we were talking about that earlier. I could be Andrew Investigative Services, Insurance Services, Investigative Group, Risk Management Services. These are the things I was thinking about, and I wrote about this in one of my blog articles. But one of the other things I wanted to be specific, right? So if someone got my business card or if someone found me in a directory or of some sort, I didn't want the name to be so vague that they'd been like, well, what is he, a lawyer? Well, because some people will name it, their name and associates, right? Jones and Associates. And when I read something like that, unless I investigate myself, like what kind of a company is that, I won't know right off the bat. But a lot of companies, are very specific there. It's, whatever the name is, it always has investigative services, investigations at the end. They want to make it so if you ever stumble upon them, you figure out pretty quick, what industry they're in, what they're doing. So that's another thing. And I've seen companies where I, even though I know they're investigation companies, it wasn't because I read their name. It was just I know of them already. So that's the other thing I had to think about. How do you, do you want to be have some sort of specificness in your name? And this is my opinion on it. You can do whatever you want, obviously, but this is how my brain was working. So then we didn't settle on anything before I did this, right? But my brother, again, he was searching up names, and he was more of the techie guy back then. I've come a long way in the past couple of years, but he was looking for domain names for me, and he was looking for brandable names, not any. I would have got the AndrewInvestigations.com. I would have got that. That wouldn't have been a big deal. But so he was thinking of more of a brandable, and he came up with Fortified. And he's like, why don't you look that up? I go, well, what does that mean? And it's like, and I looked up, it's like reinforce, strengthen. I'm like, I could play on those words. I could use that for my business. And so, what I ended up doing, was, I think I looked for other companies in the area, because that's what you have to do. And nobody, I think there might've been one other guy, and I can't remember for sure. Might have been Fortified Insurance Services or Investigative. I can't remember now. It's been a while. I actually tried to look it up, and I couldn't find the guy. I'm sure he's still out there somewhere, but I didn't know for sure. Anyway, so I ended up buying the .com. I ended up buying Fortified Investigative Services. I ended up buying Fortified Insurance Services. And I bought FortifiedIS.com. The, IS could stand for whatever it could have been insurance services, investigative services. And, one of the reasons why, because still I haven't decided on a name yet, right? But I wanted to keep my options open. So I bought those domains. One of the other things, one of the reasons I thought of insurance services was because I had worked for Omega Insurance Services. And the reason I bought the Fortified IS is because, I'm using all my previous experience with these other companies trying to, do this thing for my business or my future business. And so I chose IS, the shrunk down version, because I know Omega had their website. It was OmegaIS.com. And it's just a shrunk down version because nobody wants to, email me at fortifiedinvestigativeservices.com, Joe at, nobody wants to do it. You want the shrunk down version. And so, I checked, again, I checked everybody else. One of the things I think I didn't do was check the trademark office to make sure nobody else had the name or wasn't going to have my logo or something similar. So I didn't do that, but you're going to want to do that just in case. And I'm sure you'll be fine. And, on that same note, so, with the reason, you check for those other things because you don't want your brand to get mixed up with somebody else. and you don't want them suing you for for some stupid thing or anything like that. You just want something where nobody has anything that associated to your business for the most part. And I remember, so I'm way back when, I always bring this company up, Omega Insurance Services. So they've got a very specific logo, and it's the back in the day the way they had it, and it was a very specific. It was red and black. There was an Omega sign in the middle, and the bottom Omega Insurance Services. And so here I am, right? And so their company's based in Florida. They don't have any satellite offices anywhere else. The hub is in, I can't remember what city it is now, but it was bought anyway. So anyways, but yeah, so it was in Florida. That was it. That was their home base. And I remember always asking them, like, do you guys have any plans of putting a satellite office out here? So, if I ever wanted to move up in the company, and then they'd say, oh yeah, we thought about it, but it costs too much overhead to keep, making satellite offices. So they didn't want to do that. And so one day I'm working a case in Los Angeles. Now, mind you, I live in Northern California at the time. And so I'm doing some traveling out of town, and I'm driving down. I was done with my case. I was on my way back to my hotel or whatever. And there was a sign, this big sign that said Omega Insurance Services, and it was at this office building there. And I'm like, I pulled over, I take some pictures of it, and then I walk into the office. I haven't even called my boss yet about this yet, and I walk in there. I go, "You guys associated with the Omega Insurance Services over in Florida?" And they were like, "No, but we get calls from them all the time." And I'm like, okay, well, so you're stealing. I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you're stealing their business. That's not cool. So anyways, I end up calling my boss, sending the pictures. They're like, what? What's going on? They decided not to pursue trademark or whatever infringement on it because they'd just been bought out anyways. So it really wouldn't have mattered. But literally, colors and everything were exactly the same. I was blown away. I'm sure I have the picture saved somewhere. Anyways, make sure nobody else has your name that you want, right? And so anyways, what else did I do? So then it came down to, for me, am I going to go investigative services or insurance services? Because, let's face it, I've been working insurance related investigations, basically my whole career, with very few, cases outside of that, up to that point. And so I'm still kind of hooked on the, Omega Insurance Services, they did pretty well. And that's, they were very branded and they focused on, insurance related investigations. But then, I kind of thought to myself, well, what if I want to get out of that more? What if I want to expand? I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. And I'm be having this, specific name. So in order to not kind of corner myself too much, but still be brandable, I said, well, I'll pick investigative services. So I ended up going with Fortified Investigative Services, just because I didn't know what, I didn't know exactly what I was going to master back then. How was I going to do, domestics? How much was I going to, I didn't know what I was going to do. But I didn't want to be like, oh, insurance services only. And then nobody knew what else I could do. You know what I mean? Do you? I don't think you do, but whatever. I think you get it. So I chose a branded name because, I didn't want to be the face of the company. I didn't know what it was going to be like. I didn't know how big I was going to get. So I just wanted to just cover my bases on that. Now, so I bought the FortifiedIS.com. I bought the FortifiedInvestigativeServices.com. I bought the FortifiedInsuranceServices.com because I didn't want anybody else to have that. And I think I still own it. But now here's, you want to get the domain, right? That's a no-brainer. You want to get it. So what I'm about to say is not going to change that. But at the same time, I've read about this before. You may want to consider getting the SEO version of your domain name, and you might want to set your website under that domain name. And so, even though I would want you to get the branded the from my company FortifiedIS.com domain, you might want to set your website up under an SEO version domain. And I've talked about it like since I my company's based in Tacoma, I would want to be Tacoma Private Investigator. Or if I wanted to target Seattle, I would put SeattlePrivateInvestigator.com. I would try to get a domain like that people are searching for, and I want that to be in my domain name. Now I can still buy the Fortified. I use the FortifiedIS.com. I don't ever have to tell anybody about the branded, the SEO version of it, even though that's what my website would have. But I would just give everybody the FortifiedIS.com one, and I would just redirect that. So when people went to FortifiedIS.com, it would automatically take them to TacomaPrivateInvestigator.com, and they wouldn't be none the wiser. The SEO version would help me rank on the first page of Google, would help me rank higher above other people, and potentially get more phone calls as a result. Anyways, so you may consider that. One of the things that I didn't really think about was how much of a mouthful my company name is. Fortified Investigative Services. Fortified is already kind of weird to say. It just doesn't roll off your tongue right. And then Investigative Services. I've talked to people who, they weren't even clients or potential clients, or like people trying to sell me, marketing materials or whatever. And they would say Fortified Investigative Services, and they would stumble over their words. It just didn't come off right. So I think if I had to go back, even though I love the name, I would probably try to get something that wasn't so, more easier to pronounce. What else? So let's see here. So if I'm going to recommend some some things to think about, you obviously do whatever you want, obviously. But here's just some names, potential names to use in addition to whatever your company name is. So like I said, I chose Fortified Investigative Services. I chose a brandable name that was descriptive in there that let people know basically that I was investigating something, right? I had services of investigating. But the other ones that are out there, if you're not familiar, like that I've seen over the past few years. Investigative services, insurance services. Insurance services, usually the companies that specifically focus on insurance investigations and stuff. Investigative group is another one that I've heard. So I could have been Fortified Investigative Group. Risk management services, again, they do focus on insurance stuff, and or just investigations. I could have been Fortified Investigations. Some other ones I've seen. Something in associates, which I've talked about, even though they're not specific enough to me, like I wouldn't know what they did. That's another one that I've seen used. Something could be Fortified Missing Persons Investigations. Maybe that's what you're the master at finding missing people. And so you want that in your name, and that would actually probably help you in the SEO version. Again, another one would be like Fortified, or your company name, obviously, skip tracing services, something that was very specific to what you did, because in investigation companies, typically one way or the other, they always end up kind of focusing on, 2 or 3 things, and they get really good at it. If it's in, maybe they're in the defense, investigations where they work for the defense attorney and they're just finding out information to help the defendant. They get good at that. If it's finding people, they get good at that. If it's backgrounds, they master that, and they master it in the sense of not only the information they can find, but doing it in a non-expensive manner to them. So they just figure out how to do it fast. So. Just keep that in mind. Try to avoid something that's unprofessional, that sounds cool, like, when you're just talking about it, but might not be too cool to your potential customer. Think of it that way. So that was kind of my journey. I ended up, obviously I bought Fortified Investigative Services, and we got the FortifiedIS.com. And one of the things that I was kind of lucky about is the domain name that I bought had actually been owned by another company. And I guess the company folded. So there was already some additional SEO value to that domain name. I might have had some backlinks already going to it. If you're familiar with that, somebody already, kind of pointing to it already. So yeah, I mean, I totally didn't know that till like a year later. And when I started figuring out more about SEO stuff and, websites and building and all that kind of stuff. Once I started figuring more about that, then I was able to determine that, but that's not the norm. So yeah, business names, think about it, and if now that we're on the topic of that, I'm not about websites and stuff. If you're even thinking about, if you have a name in mind, even if you don't have the business, you might want to snag up that domain name now. I would do two things. I would snag the domain name for the company that you want. So again, I wanted to be Fortified Investigative Services, right? So I would pick up, for me, hypothetically, say I don't have a business yet, I would pick up fortifiedinvestigativeservices.com. Try to get the .com because that's just the one that everybody's always going to remember more. You can get the Fortified Investigative, like you can get the long version of it. I got that and the short version, the fortifiedis.com, because it's easier to type in for people. And I would also get the SEO version. If you could do the town you live in. So if you live in Spokane, Washington, you could get something like SpokanePrivateInvestigator.com. And that's very SEO friendly. It's going to help Google or Yahoo or Bing figure out who you are and what you're doing. It all adds up. The domain name, the name of your website, the content within there, that all points very specifically to something that Google can say, okay, I know what this guy's website is about, and they can rank you higher. I would also get your own name. I know it sounds funny, but you never know. And this is very un-PI related, but my brother did this. He did this for all his kids, and I actually did this myself. I got my domain name. I got my kids' domain names. You never know if they're going to want their own website someday, And websites are pretty cheap. I mean, not websites, but domain names are pretty cheap. If you can pick up that domain name now before someone snags it, it wouldn't hurt. You can click. I use GoDaddy, and the reason I use GoDaddy is just because it's easier for me to. I have a lot of website names, a lot of domain names, and it's easier for me to just keep track of all my domain names in one spot. There's a lot of other places you can buy. You can choose whatever you want, obviously, but I've always had a good experience with GoDaddy, so I've just kind of stayed with them. If you guys want to use my affiliate link, you can go to my website, and on there I have a link. At least I did. I'm looking at it now, and I don't even see it anymore. Well, I used to have links. I used to have links to GoDaddy, Bluehost, and all these other websites I support. Definitely check that out if you're interested in it. Click on it, and if before you buy. Usually there's like a discount. Sometimes the websites are like $1.99, and sometimes they're 30% off or whatever for first-time buyers. Click on the link. You should get some kind of discount, and I'd appreciate it. Just kind of contributes to the show, to the website, and all that kind of stuff. Keeps me afloat on this. And let's see. I think that's about it. I've got some other things. I always tell you that in the hopper. I'm thinking about how I can. I want to make Tech Tuesday a little more interesting. So instead of just focusing on one thing or another, I might stick like multiple things. I'm thinking maybe like get a little news in there, some tech news that's that's going to affect you in some way, as a business owner or a private investigator or technology for the future. Maybe like a little tech tip, and then maybe like a little tech gadget, something like that, that you could use. I don't know. I gotta play with it. Some of these things just don't happen. I'm not very creative. I did. I got to work with a guy I haven't worked with in a couple of years. I worked with him at another company, and then I left the company, and he stayed there for a couple more years, and then he left, and he's got his own business and stuff, and so we ended up working a case together. And it's funny because when I'm an introvert. I don't hang around a lot of other investigators. All my other investigators are kind of introverts too. They kind of just do their own thing. But when we see each other, it's good times when we see each other. But so we're sitting there, and I'm talking to him, and he's showing me all these cool gadgets that he has, and I'm like, he's like, did you ever have this? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Let me see that. And then he'd show me this cool gadget, and I don't want to reveal these gadgets because I want to pick them up myself, and I want to review them, and I want to show you. But it's funny because you talk to guys in the industry, and you always pick up something new. You always just figure out something like, oh yeah, maybe I could use that idea, or we got into a conversation about pretext, and he's like, well, this is what I do. And I'm like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And I explained to him why. And then I tell you, here's a good one. And I'll say, I always get the information I need using this one at this time. I think I'm 100%. And I tell him mine, and he go, well, I use it this way. And it doesn't hurt to, to kind of spitball ideas, when you're talking to other investigators. I think that a lot of times that we always think, for the most part, that we already know everything, or we know everything that we need to know, but it doesn't hurt to have that, still be open to new things. You don't have to use them, but be open to hearing new ideas on things, because sometimes you get stuck in your old ways, and you just kind of get the same old results every time unless you get some, new information. So hopefully that's why you're listening to me, because I've got a different information for you. So if you're sitting in your car and, some companies, you work for that, you don't even talk to anybody. You don't know the other guy that's working in your state, or, because you're working for this big company or whatever. You're working for the G4S's or the ICS Merrills or Hubs or Horsemen's or Factual Photos or whatever. I think that's all. I don't know. I know there's some bigger ones out there. So you're working for those, and sometimes you just don't even talk to the other people in your area. And all you talk to is your boss, and that's it. You don't have this kind of camaraderie. So, sometimes it's just good to hear that. So that's why I'm here. I'm here for you. And I'm here to share things and share ideas. And when you guys got ideas and I'm digging them, I'm going to share them on here. So feel free, of course, to email me at piadvicehq@gmail.com. Also, I've been getting a lot of emails from I get them all the time. So it's not really new, but I'm starting to think about how I can break down this industry a little bit better for you guys, and getting in and just more of a philosophy about it. But I guess I'll save that for when I can gather my thoughts better. So you guys, let's see here. It's 10:30 at night. Busted out this podcast. Listen, we're going to get into some more stuff, and we're going to have fun, and this is going to be a good year. We're going to have a lot of good stuff on here, and I'm going to be the most electrifying, entertaining PI podcast out there. I might not be the most well-produced, but I'm going to be the funnest, and we're going to have a good time. So I'll talk to you guys later.